Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
This is Daily Exchange, where the big story lives. As you know that you can be part of this conversation, we'll be looking at the new policy as indicated by the new UK Prime Minister as regards the Rwanda Deportation policy. There was an agreement between the UK and the Rwanda government as regards asylum seekers, and those were perceived to be illegal migrants or who are seeking asylum will have an arrangement where they will be deported. There will be arrangement whereby there's a settlement arrangement, like a partnership arrangement between UK and Rwanda as regards their settlement. This has been on for years. It started when Boris Johnson was the UK Prime Minister, and now the new Prime Minister, who has indicated that there's a need to review that policy, is giving a new direction as regards this agreement. The question is, what will be the fate of this agreement with the Rwandan government? And also the Rwandan government has also indicated that the money received in this regard, what should be done as regards this money. That will be the thrust of our conversation today. Don't forget to become a part of this conversation. All you just have to do is to join us on our social media platform, on our YouTube page, to review some of the stories. Thereafter, we'll also be talking about positioning when it comes to branding, making reference to the BET Gospel Award as regards the controversy that trailed it, but we'll look at it from the angle of positioning and branding and what will be the impacts of that on rating and all has to do with the BET Awards. It's Friday.
Yes.
TGIF, good to see you, Blessing.
It's always great to see you, Femi. Good morning. Thank God it's
How are you
Friday.
doing today?
I'm great. It's been a week of rains, and would like to say it's been a week of showers of blessings.
The rains are, maybe that's the perception about rain. So
and
once
that's part
it
of the
rains, people just believe it's showers of blessing.
Oh,
you know.
yes.
But it's a good one. It's good to be positive about, whatever you don't have control over, which is the weather or the climate change, is what we experience every day. So the season is here, the rains
Yes.
are here.
July is known for lots of rains,
Yeah.
but the month of July has brought several changes to different countries. For the UK, for instance, it brought a new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and there's been some new developments regards to policies that were made by the previous Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. And as you've already talked about or mentioned, we're going to be looking at one of the policies of Rishi Sunak that Keir Starmer is not intending to continue with, which is the UK-Rwanda asylum deal. Well, among many things that we're looking at in the UK that might change, that of immigration has been one of the major issues. In fact, it was a factor that played in the general election. Issues of immigration, failing public services, rising cost of living. Well, let's see how it will go, because according to Rwanda, that's UK's business to deal with if you do not want to continue with it, if they have issues with it. But for them, they have done their own part of the deal, kept their own end of the bargain in terms of finances, committing finances to improving conditions so that the refugees or asylum seekers can have a good life. But you know what the issue that UK has with Rwanda being chosen as a third safe country to move the asylum seekers to, because of the record that Rwanda itself has had in terms of human rights issues and all. And then there seems to be a thought or a thinking in the UK that why push this to a third country to deal with? Why not handle the issue of asylum claims in the UK rather than push it over to a third country? And they also see it as a measure that will not end the issue of illegal migration into the UK. So come up with measures that are more definite, measures that are long-lasting than shifting people or moving people over to Rwanda where they may not be safe. If they're running away from countries or from their home country because of insecurity, poverty, and some other issues, and then you're taking them to a third country that has some issues similar to what they are going through. We know that Rwanda has done well economically. They've moved, they've had some progress, but going down history and going back to maybe how the infrastructure may not be able to sustain the number of asylum seekers that may be moved from the UK to Rwanda, there are concerns. But that's for our guest to look into and tell us where he sees this ending. If Rwanda says we've done our bit, UK is your business, what will UK do? All right, let's bring in our guest who will be joining us this morning on the issue as we look at the deal, which the current British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is not intending to continue with Rwanda. And Rwanda says, well, UK, that's your business. Work it out. What can be worked out? We're joined this morning virtually by Dr. Innocent Ndahiriwe, who is the Dean of Development Studies at University of Rwanda. Good enough is at the place where we're talking about this morning. Thank you for joining us on Early Exchange.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Dr. Innocent, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Let's get on with the conversation. So our new Prime Minister assumes, even before the new Prime Minister came on board, there were those who were opposed to the policy that was made by the outgone Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, and even the Supreme Court did oppose that. But we saw that the deal somehow seemed to be going through until now. There's a change in government. What's your thought on the current Prime Minister of the UK regarding his stand to discontinue with the plan, the UK-Rwanda asylum deal?
Thank you very much. And thank you for giving me this chance of sharing my views about that situation. First of all, the Rwanda position is that this initiative came from the UK, and therefore it is a situation they're trying to handle. It is their problem, it's not the Rwanda problem. But I think the Rwanda government had accepted to be involved into this situation because of the historical experience that Rwanda has had with the refugees. And I think that is the situation the way it is currently.
All right, Dr. Innocent, good to see you again.
Yeah.
This arrangement was made with the intention of having a proper settlement for asylum seekers, especially when it comes to the issue of claims. I would like you to give us a picture of what actually went wrong with this arrangement. It was intended for good, but with the controversy trailing in, give us an overview of what actually went wrong with this partnership and an arrangement between the UK and Rwanda.
I think it is basically the politics in the UK. There seem to be disagreements between the former Conservative Party leadership and what has come now on board. So I think it is the politics in the UK and generally the politics of the Europeans. The issue of refugees in this world has always been there. And I'm very sure there are people who survive on this situation. That's why there is disagreement among the British leadership. That is how I look at it.
There are some people, lawyers, UK citizens, human rights activists that have seen this arrangement as a cruel one. They see it more like paying cash for humans because the UK does not want to retain the asylum seekers in the UK. What's your take on this? Do you think that if the deal had gone through, the asylum seekers would have had a much better life than where they're coming from, being resettled in Rwanda?
Rwanda has had refugees from Libya. We have refugees from Sudan. and we have refugees from the neighboring countries. So this is something that has been going on, and so far we have not had problems with this situation. I think basically it is the politics. That's how I see it. That is the politics in the UK. And one thing which we should also look at, we have activists who survive on this situation. So I don't think really, and above all, as Africans, for instance, we also need to understand that we must participate and get involved into solving our problems. If some of these refugees are from Africa, these are human beings, and we need to look into their problems and handle them. And above all, they were not supposed to settle here permanently. This seems to be a situation where they come and stay for some time, then they get reallocated where they are supposed to go. It's not a full-time settlement. This is how I see it. I don't know how you look at it, but some of the refugees who have come from Sudan, who have come from Libya, have not complained. And I think it has been a normal situation. And we must get also involved. You must also understand that Rwanda has had, historically, Rwanda we were refugees. There are quite a number of Rwandese who are refugees, including the current leadership of this country. For 30 years, many Rwandese were refugees in the neighboring countries. So the life of a refugee is not a good life. But it seems to be consistent. It seems to be consistent. There must be a solution to this problem of refugees. And countries must be involved. What we see a situation where European countries and the Western world tend to always think they have a solution. Why can't African countries also have or participate in providing a solution to this problem of refugees, which has been going on for a long time? Rwandese were refugees for over 30 years, including the leadership of this country. That's why I think the Rwanda government says, no, let us participate and see how we can solve this problem of refugees that seems to be endemic. And getting involved is important. Many of these refugees come from their homes because of the problems they have in their homes. So if these countries wanted to solve the problems, they would get involved from the beginning. Look at the roots of the problem, why people are becoming refugees. And then that's how the situation would be controlled. Otherwise, if we don't do that, if the developing world, which provides the biggest number of refugees, is not involved, then this problem will never be solved. I can give an example. The problem of South Sudan, why has it persisted? The problem of DR Congo, why has it persisted? You see? So you have activists who continue fueling the problem, and the problem of refugees continue in these countries. The problem is not as bad as it is depicted. Some of these activists survive on this situation, and therefore, that's why I think, according to me, countries should be involved. That's how I look at it.
All right, you talked about African countries being part of the solution to the global crisis of immigration. Now, specifically to Rwanda, the Rwanda government says in this deal between the UK and Rwanda, that Rwanda has upheld its own side of the deal. Could you speak specifically to what the Rwanda government has done in terms of contributing to finding solutions to global immigration crisis? And what has it done to help refugees in the country?
Okay, good. For instance, let me give 2 examples. We have refugees from Sudan. They are studying in our university here. When Sudan got problems, the Sudan government requested the Rwanda government to help them settle some of the students who are at university. We now have students from Rwanda, from Sudan, studying in our medical school. We have refugees from Libya. They have been here. We have refugees from Burundi and even the Congolese. There are very many Congolese here, over 100,000 Congolese as refugees. So what the Rwanda government has actually been involved into finding a solution. And that's why we have quite a number of refugees here.
All right. Now, it is often said when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. Now, the two elephants now, we talk about UK, Rwanda. But the elephants here, I mean, the grass here has to do with the asylum seekers. Now that the new UK Prime Minister has indicated the desire not to continue with these arrangements, what do you think will be the impact of these on the asylum seekers who are presently caught in between this web, and what can be done to handle their plight?
Yeah. There seem to be discussions going on. I think according to me, the incoming Prime Minister may have been excited. So I'm suggesting, let us, I think, wait and see what will go on, what will happen. But the Rwanda government says there is no contract which says that they should refund the money that they were given, which means the situation is still open and a solution will be got. But the Rwanda government says they are not going to refund the money that we are given. That money is supposed to maintain the refugees when they come to Rwanda. So I think there may be discussions and a solution will be got. I wouldn't like us to jump into a conclusion, because the man said it immediately when he was made Prime Minister. He may have been excited. And either the Rwanda government will keep with the money or there will be discussions. I don't think they will fail to get a solution, but there must be a solution. What the Rwanda government says, they may not. I don't think they'll give them the money because there's nothing written which commits them to refund the money that were given. So I think a solution will be good.
Talking about solution, and in reference to your earlier statement that Africa should be part of the solution. Now, these asylum seekers come from Africa, the Middle East, and some part of Asia. For those who come from Africa or who relocated from Africa to the UK, Rwanda was closer to them than the UK. Other African countries were closer to them than the UK. So why go directly to the UK? What's your thought on Africans running over to Western countries when there is trouble or perceived trouble in their home country?
Yeah. I think this situation will become an eye-opener. People have been running to the UK because of the diverse problems in their homes. The African Union has not addressed the situation of refugees in Africa, which I think is a problem. They don't address the situation of refugees in Africa. So this situation going on, I think to me Rwanda took a very good initiative, and I think people will continue discussing about it, and hopefully the problem of refugees will be handled. The Western countries are doing it on humanitarian grounds. For example, we have refugee camps here in Rwanda. The American government, through the UNHCR, has been coming and picking refugees and taking them to the US. UNHCR has been coming here, taking refugees to Canada. They have been coming here, taking refugees to Europe, mainly France and Belgium. So they have been doing it. I don't know the difference. Why can't African countries also get involved into assisting some of these refugees? The situation is that the refugees are completely being detached from their communities and they go to the US. They are providing employment. They are getting involved into other activities within the communities in the US, Canada, or Europe. I don't know whether you don't see that one as a problem. I don't know whether you see that one as a good thing. People are completely being detached from their communities. They are losing their culture. They are losing their identity. And what will be their consequence? What will be the consequences? We need to look at this as a problem. We need to look at this as a problem. It has been going on for a long time. You don't know whether it will be good for us, but I think it will be a problem. That's how I look at it.
All right, Dr. Innocent, let's look at the position of your country as regards this arrangement. You're aware that a lot of money has been committed to this. In fact, according to reports, the UK government has so far paid about £240 million to Rwanda. But your president indicated recently that Rwanda might not be under the obligation to pay back this money. How do you react to this kind of statement credited to your president, and why do you think it's so strong in making this kind of statement and taking this kind of position as regards this development?
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see why the Rwanda government would also refund that money. If the money was to help the refugees when they are here, and the deal is being abandoned, we should also look at what was in the contract. Did the contract say that Rwanda would refund the money in case the refugees did not come? So if it is not in the contract, then I don't think the Rwanda government has an obligation to refund the money. But as I said,
so if the money doesn't get refunded at the end of the day, but that amount of money has been committed to the Rwandan government for this purpose, what do you recommend that the money be channeled to in terms of helping with global migration crisis, even if the deal doesn't go through with the UK?
Yeah, you see, the UK is quiet about the money. And even what the Rwanda government said, it is not even official. I don't think it is yet official. So I'm not sure what is going to happen with the money. But the Rwanda government insists that they are not obliged to refund it because it was not mentioned in the contract. So it may not be good for me now to anticipate what the money will do, but I think it's a problem which is ongoing, and the solution will be good. As I mentioned earlier, the UK Prime Minister was excited. I don't think something will be done. Something will be done, and there will be a solution. So if they insist that the Rwanda government refunds the money, I think the Rwanda government may refund it. But currently, as it is, there is nothing which makes them obliged to refund it.
All right. Let me quote the the new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who said that the arrangement was, he had a press conference on Saturday to address this issue. And what he said was that this arrangement was dead and buried before it started. Now, he's also hoping that the money being spent on this will be recouped one day. Do you see the possibility of this? And then what do you make of his stance saying the plan initially was dead and buried before it started? How do you react to that?
Yeah, that was a strong statement indeed. That was a strong statement. But as you're also aware, this problem started some time back. And we have about two or three prime ministers who were involved in the deal, and they were supporting it. And they came to Rwanda and signed the contracts with the Rwanda government. So that was the side that was supporting it. Now, the leadership which has come is against it. So you can see it is actually a UK problem. It is not a Rwanda problem. I think Rwanda is only being patient and waiting for what will happen. Otherwise, that's why I said from the beginning that that's the British politics. So let us wait and see what's going on. But one side was supporting it. Now the side which has come in is not supporting it. So I think this is a situation which it's a British problem, I think. It's a UK problem. But Rwanda, I think, is only waiting to see what will happen.
All right, let's look at the perception here, too, that the UK seems to have for the chosen third country. Now, do you think that if a different country, perhaps a country in Europe, had been chosen as the third country to move the asylum seekers to, there would have been opposition to it? Do you think it has anything to do with the perception of security, economic power of Rwanda, that this deal is having some setback?
I beg your pardon? I don't get the question proper, eh?
Like this are done to handle migration crisis. Sometimes the asylum seekers themselves may be given the choice of choosing a third country to migrate to if they can be granted asylum in the country they seek it. Now, in this deal between the UK and Rwanda to move the asylum seekers to Rwanda, do you think that the opposition or the objection against it from the UK, whether they be lawyers, they be human rights activists, come from the perception that perhaps Rwanda may not be safe enough, may not have economic power enough to handle the refugees? Do you think that is part of the reason for the setback? If a different country, maybe a Western country also, had been chosen as a third country, do you think there would have been the same setback to a deal like this?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the way things have, this is the first experience where a developing country like Rwanda is providing an alternative or is getting involved into providing solutions to this problem of refugees. I don't think there are many African countries that have done it. And in case any European country is interested in this, in solving the problem of these refugees, I think they may provide a good solution. But I don't see a situation where one government won't lose anything. One government won't lose anything. It was only trying to provide a solution based on its history and saying we need to get involved in providing solutions to the refugees. That the problem is actually increasing, it's not reducing, and therefore there's need for us to look for these countries to look for solutions. As I mentioned earlier, I don't know why the African Union has not been involved. The Germans were suggesting that this situation between Rwanda and the UK should be understood. And they seem to support the idea that Rwanda must be involved, and many other countries should also be involved. Otherwise, it seems to be a situation which is increasing. Many refugees are going to Europe, quite a number are going to Canada, quite a number are going to the US. I don't think this is a good situation. I don't think this is a good situation.
Now let's look at the fate of some of these asylum seekers who are on site already, and some of the employees who have been employed to handle this responsibility on site. What kind of resettlement plan do you think could be put in place to cater for their welfare? And I would love to know what the government of Rwanda is doing also, or will do, to ensure that these people, their plight, are being protected.
Actually, Rwanda had established infrastructure. As I mentioned earlier, we have refugees from Libya who are here. We have refugees from Sudan who are here. So, for example, the Rwanda government had constructed houses for these refugees. The houses were inspected by the British government. They sent teams that came and did inspection of the infrastructure that the Rwanda government had constructed, and they actually appreciated the infrastructure in place. And it is a deal which has been going on for quite some time. As I mentioned, quite a number of prime ministers, the governments in the UK were involved. And up to now, the infrastructure is there. The houses are there in Kigali, the capital city of Rwanda. That's where we are supposed to stay, to live. And hopefully one day that infrastructure will be used by either the refugees or some other people.
Sir, it is uncertain for now what will happen at the end of the day, because Keir Starmer says he doesn't intend to continue with the plan. But those who are from the Conservative Party thinks is making a mistake. Now, the issue of immigration has been one of the challenges the UK has had to deal with in recent times. It was part of the deciding factor on how the general election went in July. Should it happen that the deal eventually is closed or doesn't go through, the deal doesn't go through with Rwanda, and yet Starmer cannot handle or cannot provide a better alternative to handling migration crisis in the UK, what do you think will happen? This seems to be like his very first test as Prime Minister of the UK.
Yeah. Most likely that one will be a raw deal. The Rwanda government may not lose. And the UK may decide, the current government may decide even to forget about it and forget about that money. That's how I see it. Because Rwanda says they're not obliged to refund the money, and therefore they may not refund it.
It's a challenge in the UK. So should the UK discontinue with this deal with Rwanda, yet cannot find a better alternative to tackling the issue of illegal migration to the UK, what do you think perhaps would happen with Keir Starmer's government as the UK's Prime Minister? This seems to be his very first test as Prime Minister. Looking at the bigger picture, if this doesn't go through, there's no better alternative. How do you think he will be perceived? What will happen to his place as Prime Minister?
Actually, according to him, he says there are better alternatives than the Rwanda alternative. I'm sure he has some other alternatives. Yeah, so I think we need to wait and see what they will do. But according to them, they think the Rwanda alternative is not a good alternative, and they are thinking about other alternatives. Yeah. But as I mentioned, this is also an eye-opener. This is an eye-opener to
Are there any
us
lessons
as
for Rwanda
Africans.
to learn from this deal?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. These are lessons that we also need to learn and think about.
All right, Dr. Innocent, let's look at the issue of illegal migration, which globally has been a challenge. For the UK in the last few months, it's been on the increase, and according to reports, you have about 13,000 people that have crossed the English Channel in small boats, which has been the practice.
Yes.
Now, let's look at it globally now, the issue of illegal migration. What are the factors fueling this kind of risky movement? And why do you think, in terms of figure, people engaging in this illegal migration, the statistics is on the increase? What can be done to ensure that this is managed or this is curtailed to ensure that the issue of illegal migration is reduced drastically?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. That's a good question. One thing which we need to understand, people come from their homes because there are problems in their homes. They come from their countries because there are problems in their countries. How can we solve those problems that make sure people come from their countries? One, you have governance issues within countries. We have conflicts in those countries. And you must also understand that some of these conflicts are actually created and accelerated by some of these Western powers. They get involved indirectly. You can have an example of Libya. Libya was a very powerful country. Now, seeing Libyan refugees is something we never expected when Gaddafi was still alive. Libya was a very powerful country. NATO attacked Libya. And they destroyed a country that was very powerful. They destroyed a country that was very powerful. So they are involved into the conflicts within our countries, and these conflicts make sure people create refugees because people cannot live in a very insecure area. Then another point which you also need to understand is the role of civil society organizations, including religious organizations. They protect the interests of Western powers. You find a country is poor, a country is helpless, it is being controlled by Western powers, indirectly passing through civil society organizations. So we need to have very strong states. We must make sure we fight and ensure that countries become strong. Weak states create refugees. Failed states create refugees. So how can we have good states or strong states or states not failing? So if you can solve that problem, then we shall solve the problem of refugees. That's how I look at it.
Away from the UK-Rwanda deal, let's talk about the upcoming election in Rwanda, which is to take place on July 15. Paul Kagame will be running for a fourth term. What's your take on his running for re-election as fourth-time president of Rwanda?
Actually, according to me, a country becomes more stable if it is politically stable. So there is no problem in Rwanda. Rwanda is secure. I think the constitution of Rwanda gives him powers to stand for election, and he's a very strong man. He can manage. Rwanda does not have problems in terms of security. It is a very secure country. The economy is doing well. We don't have conflicts for the first time in many years. We have been having a cycle of conflicts in Rwanda, but for the last 30 years, Rwanda has been secure. So this is something which Rwandans appreciate, and I think they don't see any reason why it can stand. I think it even brings stability in the country. So I don't see any problem with him standing again.
All right, you seem to be giving the president's scorecard there, but the issue is, what are the critical factors or the critical issues that will shape the upcoming election? And what do you think will be the greatest expectation from the president as the election is coming nearer?
Yeah. Of course, he's expected to do more, ensure there is development in the country. The economy continues to develop, and the income levels of the population goes up. Because one of the problems which we have in many developing countries, especially in Africa, is the issue of poverty. So we need to ensure that people live happily. There is development, they can access services. Actually, one of the challenges we have in Africa is that we depend on these donor countries. And you find the population is poor. So if you can have a population, the welfare of the population increasing, the income levels increase, people pay taxes, then the government provides infrastructure. That's when we would not have insecurity or conflicts. And even the problem of refugees wouldn't be there. Actually, Gaddafi had done very well. Gaddafi had done extremely well. So we need to have the population having money in their pocket. The population must have the capacity to support government, support the states, to provide infrastructure and provide the welfare of people. That's how I look at it.
All right, Dr. Innocent, you talked about stability being one of the benefits that would come from the re-election of President Paul Kagame. But let's look at this way. Should it go the other way, that someone else emerges as president of Rwanda at the end of the day, would this stability in any way be affected?
Yeah, I think stability will continue because, stability does not come from one person. Actually, people are responsible for their stability. And I think that's what the Ghana government has done. The people, the population here are responsible for their stability. And if President Kagame goes, the person who will come in will build on the stability that has been created by the institutions of the state. A state is known by the capacity of its institutions. Weak states have weak institutions. Weak states have weak institutions. So if the institutions of security in Rwanda are doing a good job, they will continue doing a good job even when another leader comes in. That's how I see it. Actually, state building is defined in terms of institutional performance. If institutions are doing a good job, if they are not driven by the state, if they are not influenced and they are doing what they should be doing, and there are legal mechanisms that support their existence, then I think the situation continues. If it's a good situation, it will definitely continue as a good situation.
All right, Dr. Innocent, we just have to leave this conversation here. Let's just hope that in coming months, proper arrangements will be made, as you've suggested, to handle the plights of those who are caught within this web. Like, you know, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. So we hope that something will be done about these asylum seekers, as you've rightly suggested. So we must thank you for your time and your thoughts on this development. We hope that when we call on you, again, you'll be able to give your thoughts on this kind of development. Thank you so much for your time and your commitment.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for also inviting me. I've been very happy. I was excited. So please continue inviting me. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
For the Nigerian music industry. Times is out.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.